So yes, again, a huge kudos to Colliers for hosting this session. Now, I know that most of you have probably been in Zoom or Teams or Google Meets or some type of online meeting all morning. So I'm going to try and make this as interactive as fun as we can. And I want to also let you know that the tips we're going to talk about today are meant to not just improve your working life, but also your personal life. And we're going to cover three major areas: maximizing your work from home setup, learning proper sitting and standing postures, as well as tips that help improve that elusive work-life balance. The best part of it is that it'll help you avoid aches and pains, boost your mood, and just improve your productivity in even a few minutes a day. And what we're going to talk about is not rocket science by any means. Some of you might be like, yeah, I'm already doing that. If so, great. What we want to look at is what are the areas you can improve on. Now, before we dive in, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do your dishwasher or load of laundry, although that is one of the benefits of working from home. I get a lot more housework done. Between meetings, I'll just throw a load of laundry on. So there are some benefits, not something you can do when you're in the office. Again, I mentioned earlier, but some of you are just joining us now. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. My awesome teammate, Sydney, is monitoring the chat and she will answer any that she can. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat window as well so that I can make sure I address anything that comes up. And we'll do that as effectively as possible in the moment if I can. If not, I'll address it later at the end. We'll leave time for a Q&A. Throughout the session, we're going to have a few polls that we do. And they're going to be quick. We're only going to leave them up for about 15 seconds or so. So when you see one pop up, just quickly answer. They're anonymous. They're super quick. And while it's optional, I encourage you to participate because we want to get a better idea of what everyone's situation is like. It helps just give us that different perspective because a lot of times we think that what we're experiencing is what everyone else is experiencing, and it's not quite the case. And we have a lot of content to go through, but what we're going to do is I'm going to leave time at the end for Q&A. So if we get through some stuff maybe a little quicker than you had hoped, ask some questions. If I'm droning on, by all means, throw in the chat like, dude, move on. We don't need to talk about this. I can sometimes get down rabbit holes, but I'll try and avoid that today. I get very passionate about this, and especially when I see the impact it has on people's life. The last thing is we're going to give away some draw prizes. We've got some like water bottle, a coaching session. We also have a fresh t-shirt we're going to give away. So I have a list of the participants, and depending on our time, I may do a little draw at the end, just a random draw. If not, I'll contact the winners by email. So by all means, keep an eye open for that, and hopefully you can win a prize. We have some awesome Nalgene water bottles. I actually don't even have one here. I'd show you. I've got in the other room. Totally free. That was one thing I didn't check off my list. All right, into it. So for a lot of people, this is reality. And while we all have days like this, the problem is when it becomes almost every day that it's an issue. Yeah, of course, we're going to have days that we're frazzled and stressed out. But when the work from home situation or your current state of disorganization in life is causing this on a day-to-day basis, that's an issue. And we're seeing more and more of that. We've been working from home now for almost 2 years, so it's not new anymore. And while the pandemic has fundamentally changed the way we work and the adaptations we have to make, a lot of people have not made that adaptation. Their stress is sky high. We're experiencing a massive mental health crisis, and people are still struggling to balance work and home life, and they haven't dialed in their work from home environment. I still hear people that literally almost 2 years in are hunched over on a laptop on their kitchen table. And not to say that working off their kitchen table is a problem. In fact, it's great. I sometimes work in all areas all over my house, even though I have an actual office with a sit-stand desk and everything like that. But we're going to talk about some of those challenges. And when we're facing high stress and our mental health is degrading and we're struggling to balance, that's not good for our physical, our mental health, our happiness, or our productivity at work. And there are some simple fixes that we can put in place, or simple strategies we can put in place to help change that perspective. Now, I have to mention it because I got into this mindset at the beginning of the pandemic where I thought everyone was experiencing the same thing I was. And as I started talking to more clients and more people, I realized that everyone is having a unique perspective. Some people are living at home all alone in a bachelor apartment. Other people have a multi-generational household with their parents and their kids and aunts and uncles in the same house. Some people are single parents with multiple kids, and there's an infinite number of other situations out there. And our experience of the pandemic, our experience of working from home, our experience of different stressors in our life is changes based on what environment you're in. So that leads us to a poll that I'm going to put up in a second here. But while I don't know your individual circumstances, what I do know is that the tips we're going to talk about have been shown to be helpful in almost every situation I've encountered. It's personal health, personal performance, and just some work from home strategies that you can use that work almost regardless of the situation you're in. So let's throw up a quick poll. Again, it's only going to be up for 15 or 20 seconds. So as soon as it pops up, you can do your response. And I really encourage you to have a look at the results when Sydney pops them up here in a second. And it's just going to give you a better perspective on what everyone else is facing these days. And I'm curious to see what the results are too. Good.
I think that's almost everyone now.
Yeah, let's throw up the results. Okay. Well, while they'll come up, I'll just continue on with the next slide. We should get them here in a second. So regardless of our circumstances, it's important to remember that change is constant. And we hear a lot of things about, oh, I can't wait till it goes back to normal when this pandemic is over and things can go back to normal. Normal, it's never going to go back to the way things were before COVID. Our world, our way of working, our society has fundamentally changed. I'm not even a fan of the term new normal, because that to me suggests that there's going to be a time of very little change. And I think change is continuing to accelerate. So if you have to use the word normal, I encourage you to use next normal, because it means there's going to be another one and another one and another one after that. What we're looking at is nuance in the words we use, but it might sound irrelevant, but it's the root of many problems people face. And that's mindset, how they approach the world. And before we dive into the rest of the practical content, I put this slide up here because I feel it's important to address something that we work with our clients on all the time, is that it's understanding that your mindset is the first step to any change. So if you're facing a situation that you don't like or you want to improve, the first thing we have to do is look at our mindset, and more specifically, a positive, a proactive mindset that's optimistic and looking for solutions. Now, we're not going to dive into too much of this today. I just wanted to bring it up because that is the foundation of any of the changes we're going to make. And at Fresh, it fits into what we call our 4 pillars of performance philosophy. And at the most simple level, mindset is the most important, and that's the filter through which you see the world. Habits are the framework that allows us to implement our mindset. Movement is they call it the generator that helps us boost our energy and improve our health. And then fuel is the way we nourish our body and our brain each day to contribute to our long-term health and performance. Now, all the things we're going to talk about will cover various aspects of the 4 pillars today, but I wanted you to have that big picture framework in place to help you, I guess, digest the material we're going to dive into a little bit more. All right. Resilience. We've all heard this word. And It's a popular buzzword these days, and it really just means the ability to bounce back from adversity, the challenges. When something comes up that you have to deal with, how do you help move through it? And the best resilience skills that we can develop are positivity and adaptability. And being able to do that requires all four of the pillars of performance. And when you just look around you, you see that all aspects of that performance spectrum. Some people are absolutely thriving these days. Other people are getting caught up and consumed by negativity and doom and gloom, and just go on social media for about 30 seconds and you're going to see probably more the downside of that, but you'll also see the positive. So the key thing to remember is that we have a choice. We might have things going on in our life that aren't effective. Our work from home situation may be challenging right now. Our work from the office setting may be the same. Maybe we have relationship challenges going on, or all kinds of different things that are going on in our life that are uncertain, but we have the choice of how we respond to that. We may not be able to change the pandemic or to change some of the policies that our company has, but we have a choice of how we respond to those issues. So the first thing we're going to dive into is what we call ergonomics at home, Macgyver style. And let's face it, a fancy workstation is really nice, but it's not a reality for most people, particularly at the beginning. A lot more people have them now, but there are still many people that may not even fit in their house to do a big fancy workstation. But there are ways that we can modify, and those fancy workstations at the base level are not needed. If you have one, awesome. Let's make sure it's set up properly, but let's make sure your environment is conducive to your health and well-being. So we're going to just quickly do another poll here, and Sydney will throw that one up. And we want to see what everyone's work from home situation is like. Do you have the essentials? Would you benefit from, you have the essentials, but could use a better one? All kinds of different options here. Just pick that. Again, we're not going to leave it up too long, 15, 20 seconds. Good. As we pop up the results here, should be able to see what everyone's setup is. Now, if you've got the whole NASA setup with like 5 monitors and the huge ergonomic chair and a massage therapist to come in and rub your shoulders every few minutes, that would be great. And you can send them over to my house after, because that'd be really good. All right. When we talk about ergonomics, I use the example of all those different tools and things, but the most important ergonomic tool is literally your brain. It's your brain because it controls your body. And the good news is that most people have one between their ears. Not everyone uses it, but we have one up there. So let's talk about how to use it correctly while we're working. So the first thing I'll say is posture. Now, post in the chat if you just sat up straighter when you saw this picture. It's almost to the person. Everyone's like, oh yeah, right, posture. Forgot about that. Our brain, you're guilty. It's natural to just think. Gravity pulls us down. So our brain is what allows us to get back up into proper posture. And that's important. Now, posture is simply the way we hold our position, our body. And there's an optimal posture for all activities, including working at a desk and in various movements or exercises we do. So if you're sitting at your desk versus standing, there's a different posture you're going to have. If you are laying on the couch, there's going to be a different posture that's conducive versus out for a walk or doing a squat. The reason I put this up there and I talk about how the brain impacts your ability at work in ergonomics is that posture has a dramatic and direct effect on energy, mood, health, the creativity you have. Literally, just by sitting up straighter, you actually make yourself smarter. Now, You might think I'm crazy on that, but if you're like this, what you're doing is occluding blood flow to your brain, not completely, or you'd pass out, but it's the blood's not flowing as well through your body as it could. As you get up in proper posture and you establish your head position, the blood flows to your brain more effectively. And we know that through functional MRI studies that when we get into the right posture and our blood flow to our brain is better, it actually improves our IQ, our creativity, our emotional resilience, and all kinds of different aspects throughout the body. It improves our mood. These are things that you're in direct control of right now. And so how many people slump back down, come back up again, sit in a good posture, and you'll just make yourself smarter right there. So again, that's the most simple, basic way. Is sometimes I'll put a Post-it note like on the corner of my computer. It's like posture, sit up. Okay. Every time you look at it, it'll remind you. And you might have to do it 100, 200 times a day right now. That's okay, because it's 100 or 200 more times than you were doing before. And you're going to be able to improve just even that basic fundamental blood flow, energy, mood, and health. All right. When we talk about seated posture, most people have the relative details of this dialed in a little bit, but there are a few key things we're going to look at. First is feet flat on the floor, and hips are above your knees just slightly. Your head position or your spinal posture is neutral, and your eyes are looking forward to slightly down, not up like this or down like smartphone neck. And those are things that, again, throughout the day, we tend to forget about and we just slouch. So if we have that little Post-it or that reminder, okay, sit back up again. The more often we can get into ideal position, the better. Now, if we go to standing posture, it's almost identical. It's just we have different hip and knee position. So again, elbows are just above the wrists. Spinal posture is good. Head's in the same neutral position. For our feet, one of the things that there's a lot more people standing these days, and one of the things they forget is that we still have to review our posture on a regular basis. If you're depending on the surface you're standing on, you might need things like a foam pad, or I've got it right here. I've got a yoga mat that I stand on that's a bit softer than my floor. I've also have these little IKEA step stools because my bar stool chair doesn't go low enough when I sit. So I put my feet on this so I can sit in a proper posture. Now, again, a little Macgyver hack, but it works. Because this bar stool, I got 2 of them on Amazon for $150, or I could go to Herman Miller and buy a $1,000 ergonomic chair. But realistically, you don't need that, as long as you understand the posture and a couple other nuances we'll talk about in a minute. So addressing your arm and keyboard height, your posture through the core, the eye alignment, as well as the standing surface, will go a long way. And I'm happy to share these slides with anyone if they want after. Just message us and we'll make sure we get them to you. Monitor height is another thing. This is where I go back to the laptop on the desk, or not on your desk, on the kitchen table or whatever. With a laptop, if you are sitting up in good posture, your head's going to be way above the height of the laptop. If you are slunching down, so your eye level is there, you're in poor posture. What we want to be able to do is ideally separate the keyboard and the laptop. A simple way is if you have a laptop, get a wireless keyboard, put your laptop up on some books or a little step stool or something, so it's at your eye height, and then you can use the wireless keyboard and a mouse to do your work. The other way, if you don't have that, is what I call zombie mode. And that's where I'll raise my laptop up to here and I'll put my arms out like this. And I rest my wrists on there, So my arms are out straight, but my eyes at the right height. So little things like that can make a huge difference. Now, I'm going to show you a few different things that I've done around my home, and these are not jokes. These are things that I've literally done work at all these workstations around my house in the past, based on what's been going on over the past 2 years. So, oh, sorry, I forgot to change the monitor height one here as I got going. So yeah, you can see if you're slouching, eye level will be right, but if you sit up in good posture, your eye level is not right. So these Macgyver hacks. So this is one where I was at. I had a little IKEA desk, and I had only my laptop, and my neck was getting sore. So I came up and did zombie mode on the laptop there. Just put a chair up on top of the desk. Worked great. Here's another one here. Cat scratching post. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than sitting on the couch because we were doing a reno in our house and I didn't have the right idea or the right space. So I had to use that. I wanted to stand up a little bit. This one was, I had to do a video call and there were kids in the room. So I went into our bedroom on top of our armoire or dresser and put my laptop there. Again, not ideal, not perfect, but it was a heck of a lot better than sitting on a chair with my laptop. And this one down in our basement on the air hockey table. Again, not perfect, but it works. It just, a Rubbermaid bin on the air hockey table got me up to about the right height. So this is where the question comes in. Is sitting better than standing, or is standing better than sitting? And there are a lot of people out there these days that are like, oh yeah, you have to stand. And I'm like, no, there isn't one that's better than the other. They're just different. They're often also task or setup dependent, depending on what type of setup you have. But there are certain things, if you're making sales calls or having a meeting with colleagues and you're brainstorming, standing is actually a lot better. But if from a creativity standpoint, they've done studies around that. If you're sitting, that's best for more deep thinking tasks. If you're working on a proposal or a detailed spreadsheet or something like that, sitting, you're often going to be able to focus a little better on that. So think about the tasks you're doing, and that can be one way to move between sitting and standing. And that's the key. Move between the two states on a very regular basis. In a perfect world, it would be ideally every 20 to 30 minutes, because staying in one posture, whether it's sitting or standing, is the biggest issue. Sitting is not bad. Prolonged sitting is what causes the issues. Standing can be great, but prolonged standing causes other issues, knees and low back, and being able to maintain your core position in the right spot for a certain amount of time. So keep thinking about movement is the key here. And we'll talk about that a bit more in the next section. All right. Next part we're going to talk about is finding balance. And we're going to chat a little bit about communication, planning, scheduling, some productivity tips, ways that you can focus. And there are lots of different tips. We're not going to be able to go down too many rabbit holes here, but I want to do it talk about it at a high level, so you get a picture of some of the things you can work on, because everyone is going to be a little bit different in what they need to take away from this seminar. And if you're finding that, hey, that productivity or that scheduling thing was really good, I can implement that. Great. If there's one thing you take away from the session today and implement it right away and it works, awesome. Been well worth your time. And that's what our goal is. All right, do a quick poll here. I want to see what some of the biggest challenges people are facing are. So Sydney's going to throw that up. Now, just a quick double check. I'm not seeing them on my screen because I think I'm the host. So is everyone seeing the polls? Just post in the chat if you are. Okay, great.
Yep, we're getting
Awesome.
answers. So.
Okay, awesome. And have you been? Have people been seeing the results from the polls? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just gonna wait a few more seconds because people
Yeah.
are still answering.
Perfect.
While we're on this poll screen, and you can answer this either in the chat or turn your mic on if you like. I thought I'd ask if anybody is of like a non-average size. For example, I'm 5 feet tall. If you've had trouble like finding the right desk, either sitting or standing, set up for yourself, because that's a huge challenge that I face, especially at home.
Even from chair heights as well, or the desk height when you're sitting in the chair.
Yeah, it took me
Yeah.
forever to find a desk that was a good height for me.
Yeah, and that's part of it, is knowing what the ideal position is, so you can add those little adjustments. From monitor height, it might be just lifting your monitor and putting a couple books underneath the monitor to get the height up, or if you're lower down, sitting on like a couple cushions or something, getting a chair that elevates, and then adding, like I have here with my footstools underneath my feet to keep my feet at the right spot. There are little things like that that can be adjusted, but that all stems from knowing what the proper posture position is optimal to be in. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sharing the results now. And we can have a look at them at the end of the meeting too, Tim.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, looks good.
Now, I could do an entire presentation on, well, in fact, I do have presentations on each one of these three components, but the main thing we're going to talk about is understanding that communication is critical when we're having challenges. A lot of people just suffer in silence. They don't say anything. And whether that's to their spouse or their kids or their boss or their coworkers, we want to be able to make sure we're communicating what we're experiencing effectively. Tons of studies show that even just from a mental health standpoint, being able to talk about the challenges we're facing and brainstorm some ideas for solutions goes a long way in alleviating or eliminating some of those challenges. Now, the communication side, like even here, I'm doing this presentation. My wife's upstairs working. My kids are at school now. Thankfully, when they were at home, we'd have to have like signs on the door that said, hey, presentation in progress, or meeting in progress is like silent time, things like that. But I talked to a lot of people that didn't have those conversations. The other thing with communication is planning, not just your own day and your own tasks, but planning as a family and coordinating, like, hey, what do you have on the go today that I need to be aware of? And again, especially when kids were at home from school, it was that much more important to be able to do those things. Now with scheduling, I'm a huge firm believer of writing down each day. I'm a digital geek at heart, but I do have like a quarterly planner that I do like page a day, all the top 3 tasks and different notes that I have. I still have that duplicated digitally, but I find studies show it as well. There's a neural link between physically writing things down and their likelihood of actually getting done. You know, putting them in a digital thing is helpful, but there's an elevated, I guess, performance benefit to actually physically writing, especially your goals and things like that, down. All right. Now, from a productivity tip standpoint, movement is one, but when we look at the time, and this is something that I've faced from a performance standpoint, working from home, and when I'm not out in the office or in meetings that I have to get to at a certain time, it's easy to let call it task creep come in. If you're not setting time boxes for what you want to get done, one task just ends up taking all day. And I'm notorious for saying, oh, I'll work on this today, and then 8 hours later I've worked on it, but I haven't really got as much done, and I probably could have got that done in an hour or two if I had said it. So there's a law for that. It's called Parkinson's law, and it's the work expands to fill the time available for its completion. And again, I have to remind people, this isn't a license to set unrealistic expectations. If you have a very detailed multi-page report to do, it's probably not going to take you 20 minutes. And my wife says, Tim, not everything takes 20 minutes. And I get that, I'm learning that. But what we say is that if you allocated an entire week to do that, you would do it in a week, but realistically, it probably could be done in a day or maybe 4 hours if you really focus. So being able to block out all the other distractions and focus on something, you can actually get a lot more done in way less time than you can. And this was first termed by a guy named Cyril Northcote Parkinson, a very formal name. But he wrote a humorous essay about it in The Economist in 1955. So it's been around for a long time. And it's that scope creep and procrastination come into the mix when you get a long timeline. You start expanding the boundaries of what the project is, and you just put it off instead of saying, you know, it's like that cramming before an exam the night before in university when you had to write a paper. You still did it and it got there. You got the most essentials in, and you probably got a half decent mark. But if you left it for the whole semester, it was this like boondoggle that just took forever. So the solution to that is to have a clear vision and purpose, make sure you have clear roles and responsibilities, understand the scope, and actually, again, write it down makes a huge difference. And then there's another method that helps to do this is the Pomodoro Method. And so some of you may be familiar with this. The Pomodoro technique it's a, call it not task management, but productivity and performance booster, in the sense that the traditional approach was 25 minutes on and 5 minutes off. So you pick a task, a very focused task, work on it for 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break and you do something completely different for those 5 minutes. And you might come back again to that original task and work on it for another 25 minutes if it's a bigger task. But the idea is that we're taking purposeful focus breaks throughout our day, that we're able to re-energize, refocus. And the way we use the work time and the, call it, rest or recovery time, can really dramatically improve our performance. So for example, say you are responding to emails. It's like, okay, 25 minutes, I'm going to go hard and plow through the inbox. And then 5 minutes, I'm going to get up and go for a walk around the block. Or, you know, if you're at home and you're like, I'm going to go put a load of laundry on, or I'm going to do 10 squats and 5 push-ups off the couch or the kitchen counter. And then, or maybe I'll walk up and down the stairs in my house a couple times, and then I'll come back again and set that timer. And it's literally set a timer and it counts down and an alarm goes and you switch. Now, this isn't always effective when people are in meetings all day. I get that. But it's also, it doesn't have to be 25 minutes and 5 minutes. It can be 50 minutes and 10 minutes or something like that. The idea is that there's a focused block and then there's a recovery break. The challenge we're getting right now at work is that people are just meeting after meeting after meeting. They go from, you know, they're even sometimes late for one meeting and they flip into the next Zoom room or Teams room to do the next meeting. They don't get that break. I know people that struggle to get 2 minutes to go use the washroom throughout the day because they're so back to back with meetings. And we're encouraging our clients and the corporate clients that we work with to do things like even setting either 25-minute or 50-minute meetings. So you give people a 5 or 10-minute break to do that, to take that break, because it has a tremendous impact on mindset, mental health, physical health, and productivity. Now, this doesn't mean that you just do some busy work in between. Using those short breaks to boost your performance, to boost your happiness, makes a huge difference. You could be listening to your favorite song. Again, getting outside, standing. I sometimes go out, stand on the back deck and just breathe some fresh air for a few minutes and then come back in. It makes a tremendous difference in terms of how you feel and how you perform. And the next aspect is movement. And this is where you notice how I've talked about movement throughout these different little breaks that we take. The more movement you can do throughout the day, the better. Now, I'm not talking about, a huge sweat and, going to the gym or anything like that. That's a bonus. We have a movement tool we call the Mobility Minute. And this is one of the first homework assignments we give our private coaching clients. And it's literally 1 minute in the morning, the first thing you do when you get out of bed, and 1 minute in the evening, the last thing you do before you crawl into bed. And the whole goal of the Mobility Minute is to take every joint in your body through its full range of motion. And there are lots of ways you can do that. There's no right or wrong way. Typically, I'll start at the head and work down to the toes, or start at the toes and work up. If you have, a minute's a guideline. If you have 10 seconds, do a squat where you round and then come up, and you're going to take almost all the joints in your body through their range of motion. A couple little rotation ones. But the idea is that we consciously take all the joints in our body through their full range of motion, everything all the way down, hips, ankles, knees, toes. That's something that is, I'd say, one of the most underrated aspects of health out there. It sounds mind-numbingly simple, and it is. The thing is, most people don't do it. Think about the last time, unless you are someone who does yoga on a regular basis, the last time you took all of the joints in your body through a conscious full range of motion. For most people, it's never, or very rarely, if ever. And that is the foundation of all of our physical performance. And it's actually a huge foundation for a lot of our mental performance as well, because our body, the brain and body, are intimately connected. And when we move, we improve our intelligence, we improve our creative thinking, our ability to focus, we improve so many different aspects, our mood, our health. They're just astronomical improvements that happen just from simply moving our body. And notice how I'm not saying you need to sweat buckets and, lift a whole bunch of weights or anything. It's literally just moving your body. There's a mechanical aspect that's important. The other thing that we often encourage is little micro workouts. Like if you're in the middle of a long meeting, you can keep your camera on if you want, or turn your camera off, but it's like, step back, do a few squats. Just stretch like this. Just do it. Maybe a couple push-ups off the side of your desk. Some stretches, jumping jacks if you want, like for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Seconds matter in this because you're going to get the blood flowing. You're going to be more focused. How many of you have ever sat there and felt like you were falling asleep in a meeting? Maybe it's the afternoon or late morning. By just up and moving, you're going to be that much more productive. So huge benefits to just doing that. Desk stretches, another thing. You can still do them seated. No one can see you. Like if I'm like this, I'm stretching my hip right now. No one can tell. So everyone sees everyone from here to here. Do some lower body stretches, activate the muscles when you're sitting there in a meeting. These are all simple things that you can do that are going to literally help instantly improve your focus, your happiness, and done over time consistently improve your health. Again, none of these are rocket science. The challenge is that most people don't do them. So whether it's, again, putting a Post-it on your screen, setting a reminder on your phone, a timer to go off that is your reminder to move on a regular basis, those are things that are just little strategies that can come into play. But I guarantee if you implement some of these things, and you don't have to implement all of them, but like the Mobility Minute's a great place to start. The micro workouts, those little, like if you said, hey, every hour throughout the workday, I'm going to do 10 squats, just squat up and down 10 times. If you work an 8-hour day, you've done 80 squats by the end of the day. Most people don't do that in a week. And no, it's not, you're not going to be an Olympian or, win the world powerlifting champion for squats, but you're going to get a huge number of health benefits from doing that on a consistent basis. So what I want you to think about is, what are the things that you can put into place? Now, I go back to mindset again, because we're in a time right now where it's like an inflection point. So many people are going down the doom and gloom negativity path. We have the choice to make, that we can choose to go down the positive, optimistic path where we take control of our actions and make the choices that are going to help improve us. So I love this quote by Zig Ziglar. The choice to have a great attitude is something that nobody or no circumstance can take from you. You can have the worst things happen to you, and lots of people do, and they choose to go to see it in a positive light, to learn from it, to use it as an opportunity to grow and improve. So using the tips and tools that we discussed today, you're going to feel better. You're going to get more done. You're going to be in a better position to shift your mindset and start harnessing all 4 of those pillars of performance. Now, again, these tips are simple, yet they work like a charm. I use them every day myself. We've used them with thousands of clients. They work when you do them. And what we find is that just most people don't do them. So I will say again, the choice is yours. What path are you going to choose? Now, I generally finish sessions with a next steps. And I want you to think about, you can put it in the chat if you want, but you don't have to. But if you have like a Post-it note on your desk or something like that, I want you to literally physically write down, what's the one change you're going to make today that's going to help you be better, improve, and ignite your potential. I'm going to give you 20 seconds, 30 seconds to literally write that down. And some of you are probably sitting there like, yeah, I'm not writing it down, dude. Honestly, physically write it down. There's a neural link between the things you write down and the likelihood that it'll get done. So think about what's the one change that you can make. All right. Now, we've talked about a lot of different things today, and there are many different slides like on their own can be their own presentations. And we do presentations for companies all the time. We've got a whole list of our most popular topics. If you think that this is something that your company would benefit from and you'd like more sessions like this, I'd love to connect. You can send myself or Sydney a private note in the chat, or you can contact us directly, but I encourage you to think about it. So this is one of the sessions we did, well, pre-pandemic, but we're starting to get back to live sessions now, but we still do all of them online as well. So here's where you can reach me. And I'd love to connect. Again, freshgroup.ca. You can email info@freshgroup.ca and or DM me on one of the social accounts. Happy to connect. I know Anne put her goal was to allot time to projects and move every hour. Yes. And the great thing is, by moving every hour, you're going to be able to have more focus to get the projects done that you have allotted time for. All right. Now I am going to flip back to here, stop screen broadcasting, and let's open it up for a little bit of Q&A. Awesome. Okay. Throw some questions out there. You don't have to speak up. You can either unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat. And I've had a couple of people message me directly. Yeah. So we do have a question. What happened, similar to Sydney's, is what happens if you don't have that, like the ideal desk? And a couple of things. First, not all companies, some companies have provided information or provided tools for you. Other ones haven't. That's okay. But you probably have things around your home that you're able to use. Like I showed you the footstools on my bookshelf here. Like I'll pull out some some books and just put them underneath a monitor, or you go back to the pictures I showed earlier, the footstool on the counter. All those little things are just ways that I looked at and said, okay, I'm starting, by being in this position for too long, I'm starting to get aches and pains. And so how can I get myself into a better position? And when we know the proper posture, where our elbows and wrists are supposed to be, what our head and neck posture is, what our hips are. And again, if you want the slides with the diagrams, I'm happy to send them to you. And so you can DM us and we'll make sure you get them. All right. Any other questions here?
I was just gonna say, this is a great investment. It goes in front of my keyboard. It's similar to your wrist pad on your mouse pad. If you're doing a lot of typing, and as long as your desk is wide enough to fit it as well. I love it so much.
Yeah. I thought when you put it up, I thought it was a sock, actually. I thought you pulled your sock off. It was like one of the patterned socks. I'm like,
no,
wait.
but it has a sloth on it and my mouse pad matches it. Just follow your dreams.
It's all about having those little branded pieces, right? All right. Now, post in the chat, like, was this information helpful? Or do you feel like you just wasted the last 50 minutes? Like, hopefully it was helpful. And I know one of the things that comes up is that a lot of people think this information is too simple. They're like, yeah, I've heard that before. I know it. And there's a difference between knowing and doing. And this is really important. Is, yeah, at the beginning, I said, a lot of this is probably, it's not rocket science. You may have heard it before. Putting it into practice is really critical. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. I'm all about reminders and like notifications that just pop up. I try and turn off all like the social media notifications and things like that, but I have little timers that go throughout the day to remind me to stand up and move. Again, Post-it sitting there. Like, everyone's going to have something that works for them, and experiment. If you try something and you realize you haven't done it in the last day or two, then that technique's probably not working. So try a different one. The reminders to move a little more. And I will share the presentation. I will upload it, and I'll send out a link to anyone that wants it via email. Sticky note reminders to sit, stand every hour. Yeah, and again, like, you can say, like, every meeting, one meeting you'll stand, one meeting you'll sit, and that way at least you're up and moving down for every meeting throughout the day. Within those meetings, I really encourage you to get used to moving. Like, even just standing here, like shifting your hips side to side, so your hip socket is staying moving throughout, can make a huge difference. Like right now, if I'm standing, if I lock my knees out, if I stayed in that position for more than a minute or two, I'd start to get knee pain and hip pain. So bending my knees. But if you stand for too long, your knee is not moving through its range of motion. So even just standing here, just be like, lift up, like my knees every once in a while. I'll kick my heels back, rotate my hips internally and externally, like that, just so that joint is literally moving. Go back to the mobility minute. Take all the joints in your body through their full range of motion. So that is, I get a great overview of the information. I'm happy to, I'll send out the presentation to people and let me know what else I can do to help, because this information works when you implement it. So if you're struggling with the implementation, I'd love to help with that. Let us know. Well, does anyone else have any other questions? No? Feel free to post them in the chat. If you want to stick around, and maybe nervous asking in the chat, or I'm happy to stick around after. So I'll give you 6 minutes back in your day, and can you provide your email address again? Yeah. So here, I'll give you I'll give you my personal one. There we go. So there's my email. Send me a message. Let me know what I can do to help. If you're any other questions, if we wrap up the call and you go, oh, totally forgot to ask this question, just email me. And yeah, happy to send you the results. So awesome. Very good to connect. And yeah, I will stop the recording now.